The high hills have a bitterness, now they are not known. And memory is poor enough consolation for the soul, helpless, gone. Up in the air, there, beach tangles wildly in the wind that I can imagine, but the speed, the swiftness, walking into clarity, like last year's Bryony, are gone.
Do you remember beachcombing for 303 shells? Our little Easter egg hunt for exploding chocolate. I think of you whenever I snap the pillbox shut. You called our ride in a Higgins boat one stop on a busy tube. We breathed through our helmets, begging the spume to ricochet, then leapt the ditch toward freedom and cleared the snarling wire. So this is freedom. This side contains the same amount of nitrogen in the air. We won the race with our fists, hands down, sound bananas. What was it all for, Charlie? 19 more minutes of linked hands and holy prayers to that bombshell divinity. How do we know this road leads back to the invisible base? Go first. I'm right behind you.
On my brow a rose and a book, for I am the Damascene whose profession is passion, whose singing turns the herbs green. The Damascene moon travels through my blood, nightingales and grain and domes. From Damascus jasmine begins its whiteness, and fragrances perfume themselves with her scent. From Damascus water begins, for wherever you lean your head, a stream flows, and poetry is a sparrow spreading its wings over Sham, and a poet is a traveler. From Damascus, love begins for our ancestors. Worship beauty, they dissolved it and they melted away. From Damascus, horses begin their journey, and the stirrups are tightened for the great conquest. From Damascus, eternity begins, and with her, languages remain and races are preserved. When I go to Damascus, my voice rings out. It rings out from the house of my mother and father. In Sham, the geography of my body changes. The cells of my blood become green. My alphabet becomes green. In Sham, a new mouth emerges from my mouth. A new voice emerges from my voice, and my fingers become a tribe. Returning to you, stained by the rains of my longing, returning to fill my pockets with nuts, green plums and green almonds, returning to my oyster shell, returning to my birthbed.
sweet black tea, shortbread, and a new buttermilk loaf, baked before Venus fades. In her chair, under a blanket of catmint, yarrow, thrift, sea lavender, and moss, crocheted by soft light, she pulls a thread. Once, grandfather's waistcoat, Francis sweater, Tom's spun it, unroved, rewound, fresh made. He tripped on her name, a birth date, his first car, the need to lace his boots, and fell deep, slipping over ice, no footholds for minutes, lost hours, then his lips shape. Mariana. And he stands cap in hand, proposing in Sunday best. He unpeels the sky for her. Cumulonimbus, cumulus, stratus, stratocumulus, nimbus stratus, altostratus, altocumulus, cirrostratus, cirrocumulus, cirrus. He dips her chin high. Her fingers break the crust. Push into the white. Pull and cast. Pull and cast. Out. They catch. Promises. Seeds. And feather by feather, each slips through a ruby ring in a macaron sky.
My geology. I excavate these words from a vein of iron, from stones broken beneath old growth, from the open pit lit by dynamite, by men whose lives are punctuated by midnights, who drive new cars to the plant, to the crusher and agglomerator, and later suffer mesothelioma. I drive in acid rain, my compass gone awry over protozoic layers with four-wheel drive. These words are test drills and core samples from the boundary waters. These words are wrung from the whistles and wheels that turn. These words have never been projected into boardrooms. I have yet to wield these powers or capitalize. I have yet to see the returns. I claim my words from the broken English, damaged roots, finished syntax, and geomagnetic fields, from eminent domain and small print, unreadable clauses. I find my vowels from labor contracts and mine dumps, factories, and invisible contamination. My words in the runoff, in open streams, oxidize, form like tree rings in industrial circles, heat in the smelters, pour like lava into steel, form these rails that carry the trains, these trains that carry this freight.
One moment passes. Another comes on. How was. How is. How will be. Was, wasn't. Is, isn't. Will be, won't. Is. Was, was. Was, is. Is, was. Was, is, is was is was wasn't, was, isn't.
I wander dreamless through your dialogues, the ephemera of affection. I trape shoeless through these dialects, these contentious claims to passions. I press these brittle souls upon the fire-licked blistered coals, upon the stain that broke the glass, upon the eggshells and kid gloves, and through the splinters, flints and shards I forged these uneroded paths. And yet I tiptoe through your daydreams, the outcast your trances toyed at night, and meanwhile buoyed by moons and frozen sheets, I thumped the thinning ice, so I meander through the arid, abandoning beds where I've expired. I'm walking dead to you, bereft of you, with crumbs of poems left of you, armed with a memory now for forgetting you. And so I wander seamless through this monologue, my forever of affection. I traipse boot-laced with my idiolect, my unchampioned claims to passions, so you can tear this infrastructure, this composure cannot flounder, and with the toughness of magnolia, the cold robustness of a character that seems to make and somehow merit me as my mother's goddamn daughter, for I'm my walker, I'm my soldier, I'm my legion and stigmata, and with the foot bind of a concubine, I'll still march on and over, for there's no man, no situation worth the shame to ever crawl for. And yet I tiptoe through your daydreams, and still I tiptoe through your daydreams. And when that thought has passed, have I left my mark? No, not even a footprint of me now remains.
His voice has never existed until now. Here it is, in the folds of my hand, in the hands of my folding frame of reference. Chairs can be moved, can move like this one. Look, look, I only turn to see, and, dear grandfather, this is more than the letter in its box, less real than dream, dram, restless. Here it is, on the surface of the lake, a floating stone, revolving and intimate. I miss you, most of all.
Let down a line into the blue spaces. Then reel in the wrong word with letters made of rain. Or snag until the whole line thrums with the familiar. Here it begins, you think, looking at the fishing mind, pulling up empty consonants, running its licking thought around each crevice. Not even a trace. Leave, commands a voice. Depart this shore. Let time wash up whatever you sought. Flotsam from a life of random collection. Dead memories swirling there between continental bones. Damage from the air, the phone, or whiskey drinking in the small hours with former acquaintances who have now forgotten your name.
While I was fearing it, it came, but came with less of fear, because that fearing it so long had almost made it dear. There is a fitting, a dismay, a fitting, a despair. 'Tis harder knowing it is due than knowing it is here. The trying on the utmost, the morning it is new, is terribler than wearing it a whole existence through.
The waters chased him as he fled, not daring look behind. A billow whispered in his ear, "Come home with me, my friend." My parlour is of shriven glass. My pantry has a fish for every palate in the year. To this revolting bliss, the object floating at his side made no distinct reply.
Les enfants n'ont pas d'archives. Ils sont nés libres. Ils n'ont pas à se soucier de toutes ces boîtes de papier attestant telle ou telle vérité. Ils n'ont pas d'entrepôt à payer, pas de taux d'humidité relative à maintenir. Leur passé n'est pas encore arrivé. Ils n'ont rien d'autre que la vie devant eux. Le sang qui coule dans leurs veines n'est pas saturé d'anticorps. Ils sont faits d'oxygène. C'est peut-être pour cela qu'ils ont de grands sourires. Pour ce qui est des adultes, c'est une autre histoire. Ils s'affairent au triage, à la classification et à l'enregistrement de tous les détails du monde. C'est comme s'ils tentaient de repousser une invasion, de contenir une infection. C'est un travail à temps plein, une industrie. Il est facile d'imaginer le désarroi et l'inquiétude qui doit s'emparer des codicologues devant le désagrégement des vieux livres, devant les assauts des insectes bibliophages ou encore devant l'évanescence des documents électroniques. La préservation est quelque chose de très difficile et de très sérieux, qui demande une attention toute particulière.
Archive, where the present keeps shifting and nothing is nailed down. 1992, 1993, 1994, 30-odd years are held here. Everything has been combed for silverfish and book lice. The whole of the Caribbean poetry of the West Indies and Britain is stuffed into an HMV bag. Andy and Fergie are a stamp on George Charlton's Night Workers. Old manila envelope I could tear a strip off like a relic snatched from the hem of a monk's robe. Far from the desk light's shed circle is this archive, a lit window in the poet's shadowy house.
Wow. Schwung!
Дело да. Только по любви.
In Worcester, Massachusetts, I went with Aunt Consuelo to keep her dentist's appointment and sat and waited for her in the dentist's waiting room. It was winter. It got dark early. The waiting room was full of grown-up people, Arctics and overcoats, lamps and magazines. My aunt was inside what seemed like a long time, and while I waited and read the National Geographic, I could read, and carefully studied the photographs. The inside of a volcano, black and full of ashes. Then it was spilling over in rivulets of fire. Osa and Martin Johnson dressed in riding breeches, laced boots and pith helmets. A dead man slung on a pole, long pig, the caption said. Babies with pointed heads wound round and round with string. Black, naked women with necks wound round and round with wire, like the necks of light bulbs. Their breasts were horrifying. I read it right straight through. I was too shy to stop. And then I looked at the cover. The yellow margins. The date. Suddenly, from inside came an "oh!" of pain. Aunt Consuelo's voice. Not very loud or long. I wasn't at all surprised. Even then I knew she was a foolish, timid woman. I might have been embarrassed, but wasn't. What took me completely by surprise was that it was me. My voice. In my mouth. Without thinking at all, I was my foolish aunt. Oh. We were falling, our eyes glued to the cover of the National Geographic, February 1918. I said to myself, 3 days and you'll be 7 years old. I was saying it to stop the sensation of falling off the round, turning world into cold, blue-black space. But I felt, you are an I. You are an Elizabeth. You are one of them. Why should you be one too? I scarcely dared to look to see what it was I was. I gave a sidelong glance. I couldn't look any higher. At shadowy gray knees, trousers and skirts and boots and different pairs of hands lying under the lamps. I knew that nothing stranger had ever happened. That nothing stranger could ever happen. Why should I be my aunt, or me, or anyone? What similarities, boots, hands, the family voice I felt in my throat, or even the National Geographic and those awful hanging breasts, held us all together, or made us all just one? How I didn't know any word for it. How unlikely. How would I come to be here, like them, and overhear a cry of pain that could have got loud and worse, but hadn't? The waiting room was bright and too hot. It was sliding beneath a big black wave, another and another. Then I was back in it. The war was on. Outside in Worcester, Massachusetts, were night and slush and cold. And it was still the 5th of February, 1918.
I remember. I remember when the humming of thought wafted through my nose.
I remember the journey is lonely for a long time, even when back then I didn't realise.
I remember our bubble went on tubes. In silent crowds, I always say aloud that none of these people seem real.
Remember the smiles of recent strangers lighting dark rooms.
I remember orange cake, moist and sweet, smelled like spring.
I remember wisps of grey-white curling through a sky that still clings to a burnt fire.
I still feel the vapours emerging from the scalding concrete of an overworked city.
Vapour of my breath confirming the reality of truth.
Lukewarm waters chill the kindest among us.
I imagine bonds held tighter than shares in the government.
I imagine a life that is not lived for the sake of repairing all the damage life has done in the first place.
This is your legacy.
This is your legacy, my child.
Is your legacy, my child.
How many dawns chill from his rippling rest, the seagull's wings shall dip and pivot him, shedding white rings of tumult, building high over the chained bay water's liberty. Then, with inviolate curve, forsake our eyes as apparitional as sails across some page of figures to be filed away, till elevators drop us from our gaze. I think of cinemas, panoramic slates, with multitudes bent toward some flashing scene, never disclosed but hastened to again, foretold to other eyes on the same screen, and thee, across the harbor silver-paced, as though the sun took step of thee, yet left some motion ever unspent in thy stride, implicitly thy freedom staying thee. Out of some subway scuttle, cell, or loft, a bedlamite speeds to thy parapets, tilting there momently, shrill shirt ballooning. A jest falls from the speechless caravan, down wall from girder into street, noon leaks a ripped tooth of the skies acetylene. All afternoon the cloud-blown derricks turn, thy cables breathe the North Atlantic still, and obscure as that heaven of the Jews thy guerdon, accolade thou dost bestow, of anonymity time cannot raise, vibrant reprieve and pardon thou dost show. O harp and altar of the fury fused, how could mere toil align thy choiring strings? Terrific threshold of the prophet's pledge, prayer of prayer, and the lover's cry. Again the traffic lights skim thy swift, unfractioned idiom, immaculate spy of stars beating thy path, condense eternity. And we have seen night lifted in thine arms. Under thy shadow by the piers I waited. Only in darkness is thy shadow clear. The city's fiery parcels all undone, already snow submerges and iron year. O sleepless as the river under thee, vaulting the sea, the prairie's dreaming sod, unto us lowliest, sometimes sweep, descend, and of the curved ship lend a myth to God.
Before I leave Osaka, where the fault lines lie, show first mother, wife, and daughter. Let them receive me from your past. Tell them I'm lost family. I will tie a loosened tongue. Fragments of a question can be hung across the bay. I'll say nothing, but I may record the scene, despite this discharged sewage which laps around my feet. Before I go, Osaka, hear the creak of fractured pipes. I am Kobe. I am Kobe. I am Kobe.
Dawn, Kobe, 5:46. An unexpected guest arrives through windows, walls, and floors, without permission takes up bodies, separate hands and feet, a flailing arm and leg, and 20 seconds later, a twisted neck, propped up against roof tiles. Thick mud, no nails, no sign of honor between limbs and head. Shallow shadows dipped in clay, sallow features creep crawl sideways like a giant spider crab, claws hooked into bedding, tips of fingers sunk in dust. Namazu, 5,100 trapped, Kakeshi. Kashima with his calabash gourd strung from hip to knee staggers through debris. Doesn't notice the high water, doesn't see the lights have dimmed, lights out.
Now you offer me your futon. a blue one with red cord, left undamaged, slicked up tight between floorboards. Excuse me, I'm mistaken. Lack of light has left me weak. Am I misreading your connections? This room is not for sleeping. Look, debris hides a crib and the floor beneath our feet has started shaking. I am Kobe. I am Kobe. I am Kobe. And the south of Miyasaka is where the fault line lies.
And the south of Miyasaka is where the fault line lies.
She says that she is learning to be immortal, although it has not been easy. She's trying to learn to stop eating, she says. Nourishment distracts the body from its truth. Last week, I found her in the garage with 3 cans of tuna. She cried, said it's harder when it's cold out like this. It's so cold in the garage. I know. The prophet is mad. She is losing her hair and has broken her bed frame at the center. She sleeps on the floor now with the dog. She says, we are all animals. Take a bite of me. Am I not meat? Am I not gamey? It is better this way, she says. Am I not a beast? Look at my eyes glow red and my claws. She is rending her bed sheets, wrapped in them there on the ground. Her prophecy will come soon, and it will be useless sputtering. She falls over while ordering a coffee, says that intoxicants bring her closer to the truth. It is nourishment that is drawing her away. She grabs at the tea bags in their waxed paper packets, crawls under the counter, won't come out. The barista glances at her, looks down to his work. She told me she had seen her brother decide to die. I'm going, he said. Then he closed his eyes, and he was gone. The prophecy is gone. They said you could grow it in dung or premix it and store it in the freezer, but come upon in that form, it is only the size of a droplet of water, and when it falls to earth, well, it barely makes a sound.
For you now, there is always somewhere else. That somewhere else you need to be, where someone you love is. The somewhere else you crouch in the disheveled dark, animal but pure. Blood, bone, breathing, born beyond what you once were. A son, a brother, a husband, a father, a grandfather, our moon in the sky. Somewhere else, where what you love is, someone else sees who you once were. By shrouding you with memories, those shadows in the mist through which you look for somewhere else and someone else. Us, looking at you right now, looking for that somewhere you must be, but can't find, to remember.